Okay, it's just been brought to my attention that Mr. Halford is in the room with us from the Auditor General's office. Welcome, Mr. Halford. I'm half deaf in this area and my Deputy CEO is a whisperer, so I've just been clarified up that we will now go to item number 6, which is your department's report, as you are in the room. So if you'd like to come forward, Mr. Halford, you're more than welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon.
So, Ms. McLeod, do you want to lead this off? Ms. Gilbert?
Mr. Manhennet.
Thank you, Chair. The last meeting of Council resolved to submit the long-term plan for a audit report. The representative of the Audit Office, Mr. Ben Halford, is here to advise Council on the results of that audit. So, Mr. Halford, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Manhennet. Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon to all councillors. I'm pleased to be here today. I'm pleased to be also issuing an unmodified audit opinion. That is the new terminology for an unqualified or clear opinion. It's worth taking a moment just to consider the wording of the audit opinion. Overall, the audit opinion concludes that the final LTP provides a reasonable basis for long-term integrated decision-making by the Council and for participation in decision-making by the public and subsequent accountability to the community about the activities of the Council. The Council has complied with the requirements of the Act in all material aspects, demonstrating good practice for a Council of the size and scale within the context of the environment. And the underlying information and assumptions used to prepare the LTP provide a reasonable and supportable basis for the preparation of the forecast information. Actual results are likely to be different from the forecast information, since anticipated events frequently do not occur as expected, and the variation may be material. So accordingly, we express no opinion on whether the forecast will be achieved. So we're actually auditing the process. We're auditing your compliance with legislation and accounting promulgations by the Auditor General's Office. Your LTP is a reasonably short document in comparison to some of these documents that I've seen over the years, but from reading it, you can quickly gain a sense of what...
Excuse me, can you just bring your mic in?
Is it turned on, Ms. Gilbert?
Is it turned on?
So just to reiterate that, your LTP is a reasonably short document in comparison to a lot of the other ones I've seen over the years, but you quickly get a sense of what the issues are that affect this Council and what the issues are the Council wants to consult upon. I think the LTP shows a balance between the environment we face today and the need to continue to address the challenges Council is facing. The financial environment today is quite different to what it was 3 years ago. Since the LTP statement of proposal was made available, we have confirmed the consultation and submissions requirements of the Local Government Act 2002 have been complied with. We recognise that there are a significant amount of feedback in this case, but we conclude the plan was financially prudent. Council was managing its debt levels, maintaining compliance with its new drinking water standards and responding to the lower levels of growth expected. A point of note was our testing of the asset management plan has shown the Council's made significant improvements in the standard of its asset management plans. So in concluding, I'd like to thank the staff and their cooperation in completing our audit, especially Ariel King and her team. I think the process went well with regular meetings with Ariel and her team and provided a good forum for understanding the process and dealing with the matters as they arise. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Any fellow councillors like to ask any questions of Mr. Halford from the New Zealand Audit Office, who has basically just given you a thumbs up for the long, arduous process you have been through and the document that you have produced?
Will we get a written copy of that report?
Yes.
You will get a copy of the audit report, and if you wish to have a copy of that, I'm happy to leave that with you.
Okay.
Are there any further questions for Mr. Halford? There being none, I'm now going to adjourn this item and move to agenda item number 7. Yeah, I realise that. So that was just so Mr. Halford could give his report, and he will now have to travel back to Wellington in this atrocious weather.
Tauranga.
Oh, Tauranga, my apologies. I thought everybody came from Wellington. So, adjourning item number 6 and moving now to item number 7, transitional rates remission policy. Ms Gilbert, you're still in the hot chair.
Just how I like it, Your Worship.
Only once a month.
All right, thank you. Where's Tony? Okay, so at the just to kind of just back up just a teensy bit, at the end of the hearings and deliberations process at the end of May, and you've noted this in the minutes that you've received, Council made a series of resolutions in terms of where its decisions were heading, which included a resolution about adopting a transition mechanism for the move or change in the valuation basis for general rates. So we've done quite a lot of work with the finance team, who sadly are unable to be with us, and come up with a proposed remissions policy for you, or in fact it's a transitional remission policy. There's kind of two big issues in relation to rates remissions, I guess. And perhaps I should just back up a little bit. You've actually already consulted on your rates remissions policy. You adopted that for consultation back in February. And the reason was because there was a small change to the policy that needed to be made, and it was the insertion of a new clause, which is shown as the remission of general rates for council-owned utilities. And it's really just to stop kind of a big go-round for council to rate itself, bill itself, and then apply for a remission. And this way it's like you write it into your policy, problem solved. So this is an amendment to your remissions policy as it stood, the policy as it stood in February this year. So the first part of this item deals with voting to accept or adopt that change to the remissions policy. And then we move into the issues surrounding the transitional remission policy, which is a 3-year mechanism that we've outlined in the attached papers. Because of changes in the Local Government Act in 2010, and specifically Section 102.3 and 102.4, Council's now required to go and consult on the transitional remission policy. Tony, come and join us. I would also alert you to the fact that a number of other councils have found themselves in this position, that having got through all of their long-term planning, hearings, deliberations, decision-making, they then find they want to make an amendment to one of the adjunct policies and find that they now are obliged, because of this change to the law, to go out and consult again. So there's a bunch of things in relation to that I can talk you through. But I wasn't quite sure kind of which level of detail you would find useful at this point.
Councillors, I think Ms Gilbert's looking for a bit of a steer here.
I've got a couple of questions. Mrs Gilbert, at the moment, the policy, does it stand at 4 million of rates or remissions? The issue on page, on the one that we got given out before, page 2, you've got transitional remission policy. Does the policy actually stand? The policy provides for a 4 million of rates remission. Is that what it stands at the moment? It does. Yep. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, this one, page 2. It's not the ones that you've been given out.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yes, it does.
And then the other one is further down on that page, page 9 or 14. Is the maximum secondary remission. It's over 3 years, but it's on this it says 66.66 on the first and then 33. Would it not be 33 on each years, or does it not work?
No, what that means that over the period of 3 years you move through the remission, and so it's concluded by the end of 3 years. I know, I thought it was confusing too.
Yeah. It just looks like it's only over 2 years and the last year is nil.
So at your first year you get 2/3 off, at your second year you get 1/3 off, the last bit of it off, and at your final year you're then paying the full amount on the secondary remission.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
Okay. Any more questions? Councillor Craig?
Description there, bullet point 2, can I have it clarified what that actually means? As I understand it at the moment, and I could be wrong, that we had 30 odd businesses that were severely affected by the capital weighting. And what we were told was that they would be reduced accordingly from being less severe. And when I asked at the time, where's that shortfall going to come, I had replied that it was going to come from the general rates of everybody else. Is that so?
Yes, all remissions come from the rates of everybody else.
Yeah, but this is and what I'm asking here is there was 30 ones that were higher than everybody else, and we agreed that we agree that they would be subsidised by everybody else?
My understanding is that we said we would need to put in place a special remission mechanism for them.
But it's not remission, is it? It's putting the load onto the other ratepayers, isn't it? Because that's the point that I just want clarified, or have I got it wrong?
Councillor Downer chaired this, so I'll allow his question.
I think all councillors understand, you take one off one, it's going to go on the other, no matter whether it's industrial, electricity or residential. So, to have a remission, it's got to go somewhere.
I'm asking the fairness of it, Mr. Downard.
Sorry?
I'm asking the fairness of that.
Well, that's part of the equation that you come to in deciding where your vote's gone. There's always, the pie stays the same, it's just a matter of where it moves. And unfortunately with remissions, and that's what we said, to take it off the high end,
yeah.
It's going to have to go on to the other ratepayers that are either paying less or in the middle. That's why it brings everything into that. You haven't got the seesaw way out to top surveys where you've got heaps getting less rates and heaps getting more. It brings it more into the middle.
It looks like the poor are subsidising the rich.
Well, with the remission, it is.
Councillor Minshew?
Mayor, I'm just not sure who to ask this question to, but this transition policy, why do we need this if the CV is more fair and equitable? So why do we need a policy if CV rating is more equitable?
Who wants to answer that? Mr. Benhennett?
Based on the submissions that were made, there was a request by a number that should we move to capital value, that it be transitioned over a period of time instead of being a one-off hit. Based on those submissions, you as council deliberated and said, yes, if it's a move to capital value, then we will phase it in rather than do it all in one go. So, with all due respect, you should be able to answer your own questions.
Councillor Minshew?
It doesn't quite answer my question, but the other side of things I just want to double check. So when ratepayers receive their rate bill, they'll be seeing the gross amount of CV 3 years out or 4 years out, and then the calculation working backwards to what they are paying so they can see their remission. So they'll still see the gross amount that they're going to be due in 4 years. Will we see that in our rates bills? You
will see the gross amount due for the 12-13 rating year and the remission with respect to that particular year. You will not be seeing on your rates bill, just as you don't at the moment, what a forecasted rate figure will be 3 or 4 years out.
My other question that Mike was alluding to was, so if I was getting a rate reduction, will I see my rates bill, what my rates would have been under CV, but now because of the 4.1 million balance up, will I see how much more I have to pay to balance up the remission?
No.
Councillor Craig?
Just as a matter of interest, Mr. Manhenning, I did a survey of all the submissions that we had verbally here, and there were 133. The number that mentioned CV was 74. The number that voted for CV were 4, but only 3 of those said the transitionary process. And those other submissions, the 70 other submissions, were against a variety of other things. So I could only see a very small percentage of people that wanted this transitionary process.
With all due respect,
excuse me, Mr. Manhattan, but the question is?
The question is, does that 3 out of 133 qualify Mr. Manhattan for saying that we had submissions that wanted a progressive we're missing process.
Understand the question.
You can do anything you want to with numbers. Based on those numbers that you have just stated, Councillor Crate, 3 out of 4, which is 75%, opted for the transition. Because you said there was 4 that were in favour, and of those 4, 3 of them wanted transitions, so that's 75%. So as I'm saying, you can do anything you want to with numbers.
Okay, well, I'm not prepared to let this be relitigated under the long-term plan process, which I admire each and every one of you for going through. Torturous, arduous journey you were on. Hand on heart, I know you've all got your opinions and done what you believe to be the best you could, and you did, in my opinion. And that I just want to remind you of Resolution 4934 on the Council's books, that a transition mechanism be provided for general rates. Williams moved, Johnson seconded, and passed. Cannot be relitigated. Any further questions, Councillor Minsher?
My other comment, say concern, is obviously communications plan is to clearly communicate to the Taupo District the transitional remission policy. I'd really be interested to see what that policy is going to look like in that submission question, because it'll be a very difficult thing to put to the public to understand this transition policy. I mean, even we're having trouble getting our heads around it. So,
policies, Councillor Minsher.
Questions of clarity I will allow, and Mr. Manhattan, you might be like, if you could extrapolate a little bit further, please.
Yes, there is a communication copy of the communication plan there. What is intended to is that we will hold a workshop with councillors in July, so as you completely understand what the dynamics of it are, to assist you in answering questions, and also when you get to the hearings and deliberation stage that you are doing it from positions of knowledge.
Councillor Heckland?
Thank you, Alan, because that's one of the questions that I was going to ask. But the other thing that just concerns me a little is the actual programme and the receipt of the submissions, which is Friday the 27th of July, and then the hearings and deliberations and decisions on Monday the 30th of July. I'm just wondering, when are we going to be able to perhaps receive those submissions so that we can at least read them before the Monday, or are we not going to receive those?
The issue we have is that legally we have to go out for 30 days for consultation, and based on that, to then have the hearings and deliberations in time for us to strike the rates for the invoices that go out as at the end of July. That's why the timetable is so tight. But what we will do is, if we get